Hi, I'm Sherry from Mrs. S Room on TPT, and one of the questions I often get asked is how to get a Cursive program organized and running. So I'm going to show you how I run Cursive. I will admit it is not groundbreaking at all. It is just what I've learned over the years of doing Cursive with students. And I will say I was one of those teachers that quietly did Cursive even when you weren't supposed to, because I felt like it was one of those things that was necessary for students. So Cursive is added, you'll notice this is the same as my language video. Cursive is added in grade 3 in Ontario. And so if you are a grade 3 to 8 teacher, you should be doing Cursive, but it's really not that hard. So at the beginning of the year, you want to start by assessing students. And the easy way to assess students is start with an easy test that could be considered art. I love Cursive name art, and then I can see the level my students already have of Cursive. So this is an example of a Cursive name art activity that I did with students, and it really helps those that struggle with Cursive because then they start to see it not necessarily as writing, but as an art form. Why? Why do Cursive? And I've had some pushback from teachers on why should I incorporate this? Well, there's a lot of research that shows that Cursive is often easier for those with fine motor control. Many countries start with Cursive for this reason. They actually don't start with print. And it can give students who struggles with print confidence that they can communicate and their ideas can be heard. Everybody wants to communicate. And it must be sequential. So you can't start with writing words when they don't even know what the letters are. So when I start with students, I'm starting with the letters. How do you write these letters? And we start with the letters that are easy to do first. And there is a proper order to Cursive, in my opinion, just my opinion, because I've spoken to some OTs, and that is something that they say. There's ones that are easier for kids to learn. So those are the ones we start with in my classroom. You'll notice this is the very same screen that I had in my language video. If you haven't seen my language video of how to run a really easy language program, by all means, I will link that below. But this is included as part of my language video. And that is that Cursive is done just every day for about 20 minutes. It's not something that's difficult. I don't mark a lot of it. A lot of it is just them practicing. So my writing package, my Cursive writing is on TPT. It's $5. It says 58 pages there. I need to correct that. It is 134 pages, and it starts with letters and moves on to full reflections. So to start, I always teach C, A, I have A twice, D, G, and Q. And then E, L, F, and H, because they have similar loop patterns. And in my Cursive package, it goes into more detail on which ones and why. But essentially, there's a specific order that I teach them in, and those are the ones that students practice the most. I also would say I use lined books. I don't always use photocopies because I find some students might get stuck on the letter D and they might not be able to make it. So they might have to practice that more than they practice something else. So often with students, I will use books as well. But I like a writing package. I've always used one. I had one from an OT for a long time because I knew what sequence to use, because from year to year you forget. So when you should do this, you should teach the new letter first. So you might do this at the end of the day. This is a great one at the end of the day. And you just very quickly go slowly, do it as class, have everybody practice with you. But after you've taught it, you can let it be a center where kids practice. And then when their work is complete from Tuesday to Friday, their Cursive work, I have them bring it to me to check. If it isn't done well, they know they fix it. So they can rush through. They can get it done in a really crummy way. And then I'm going to make them fix it. So they quickly learn that it is better to go slowly and do exactly what they're supposed to do, and then not move on quickly so that they do a really good job. Because I do erase when things are not correct. Easy tips. Unless students have whiteboards with multiple lines, and even then, really, please don't use whiteboards with students. They have a different feel. So one of the things I said is use paper and allow students to understand the feeling. It's very kinesthetic. And you know that even from writing on paper to writing on a whiteboard as a teacher. there's just something about it. It writes differently. So use that in order to practice on paper. And yes, I know it uses paper. As I said, if students they're not progressing in the worksheets, then switch them to a lined book. That works. I try to make sure that students have mostly sharp pencils if possible. Mechanical pencils really are okay for older grades, but wood pencils are better for all. Keep a pack of your own white erasers on hand. So before I start cursive, I buy a whole pack of white erasers, and I keep one in my pocket as I'm walking around. I put my name on it too. Be encouraging. For some kids, keep in mind that this is super hard. I make jokes about their letters leaping off the page to get a snack, or other things to make it fun. So if their letters are not sitting right on the line, I'll say, your letter's pretty jumpy today. Man, we gotta fix that. And then it doesn't put the pressure on the child to get the letter right. It puts the pressure on the letter, which they don't care about. So then it makes it a little more fun. And this works when they're in grade 3. They really like this. By grade 8, of course, you would have to fix it, but hopefully they've had some previous instruction by that point. Have helpers who can also be kind, and kind is so key, as a reference for someone who might just need to help if possible. So maybe they just don't remember how to make that loop on the K. Have a helper that can show them. And encourage it as art. And again, you might wish to consider doing another calligraphy art, because it really does help students if they see it not as one long stroke to make the letter, but as a series of careful, short moves, kind of like sketching. Sorry, I had that twice. Okay. So these are added in to help continue with positive cursive skills. So once students have mastered letters, then we want to move them into using words that contain the letters that they already know and then that are easy to put together. So we start with short sentences. And then as they get older and their cursive is more advanced, I might have them read the quote, copy it on the lines below, and explain why you think what the quote means. So they're going to reflect and infer. And this is really good because if they're really strong in cursive, you can even have them write in that white space in cursive and see how they do without the lines. And it kind of gives you a quick test. What can go wrong? Okay. So obviously you can have students, especially in grade 3 where they've never done cursive before, that are struggling with OT. So you need to check for issues and make referrals first and make allowances for a grace period for them to mature and for them to come along in their fine motor skills. The other thing that can go wrong is students being careless. And I see this until I start correcting it. So when I start fixing and editing all of their cursive, then they realize how picky I intend to be. And then when that's the case, they start doing a better job. I do find, for the most part, you're always going to have one or two that don't. And then the other one is what work not completed in the time allotted. And I go over that more in my other videos. But that becomes, if you can't get it done, then you've got some homework then. Or if you can't get it done, then maybe you get a fine in our classroom economy. So however you want to do that with your students, that's a behavior management issue. But that is something that I do see that kids slack off and then they kind of forget to do the cursive. And you don't want to forget because it is one of those skills that they can really use later in life. And that is the end of the video. If you have not checked me out on Instagram, it's at Mrs. S Room. I have a Facebook page. That's where I post all new products, even those that are at a discount or severely discounted. It's also where I post updates. I like to make sure that all my products contain a lot. So I'm always adding to bundles. So if you have like the bundle of my comprehensive language, you just got a bonus because all sorts of science articles are now included that you can use with students. And then I also have a website where things are listed in Canadian, mrssroom.com. Thank you for watching.